Welcome back to Boring Reviews.
Boring Land.
Oh, just kidding.
Blasphemer.
Hello,
right.
Boring Review Nation.
Kind of pointless.
We know all things. Hello, Boring Review Nation. Gabe.
Nick.
And we are here once again for another
Throwback Thursday, created by Mr. Gabe.
Dude, I love this segment. You know what I mean, dude? I'm telling you, some of these old films, we've already done Back to the Future. It takes you back to your childhood. You know what I mean? A lot of just nostalgia when you watch these films. And you know, when you watch them, of course, you see there's some plot holes and certain things don't stand up, right? But at the end of the day, you know what I mean? It's just like what really made you fall in love with film originally. Indiana Jones. I got a great idea for one of them. I was just thinking about it today. Dude, gotta do Die Hard. We gotta do Die Hard. I mean, that was like my favorite action movie growing up was probably Die Hard. You know what I mean?
Wait until Christmas to do it. Who knows? But yes, Die Hard is amazing. So you're talking about nostalgia and whatnot. I have a prediction. I guarantee that this is going to be the highest viewed Throwback Thursday video we have so far because they average like 200 views. We're looking at our first Indian film in the Throwback Thursday series. This is not one that we grew up on. This was not one that we knew about until we started this channel. But we are talking about Dawn, 1978 film, the original with Amitabh Bachchan. And you got so many other actors and actresses that we were not even aware of. And before we get into it, you know, don't forget to like and subscribe to Boring Reviews. We do these every single Thursday, U.S. time, unlike our Cricket Tuesday, which is Indian time. We're excited to get into this, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. I just want to start with some of the actors, and then you can start with some of your thoughts. So we have this actress, Zeenat Aman, who plays Roma. She's the sister of Ramesh, and she's the one that's kind of going against Dawn. I won't give too much of that away right now. She was, for me, a revelation. She was fantastic. She was a female action star in 1978 in Bollywood. And I'm not sure, I could be wrong, but I'm not sure, like here in the U.S., there's a whole lot of that. I like this girl's storyline, and I loved her performance. I thought she was a huge standout. We also had a few other standouts. We had Iftikhar, who played DSP De Silva. I thought he was good. Even though he was older, he was super scrawny. He wasn't really too menacing looking. He seemed like that guy who was super smart. If I'm wrong, I think he's the same guy from Dewar. I'm pretty sure I can't remember, but there's a few other standout performances, but those two, and obviously in addition to Amitabh Bachchan, who's just a man in this movie, those ones stood out to me right away.
For me, and you know me, man, I love the bad guys. You got to have a compelling bad guy. And we'll get into the story, or if you want, I can get it. However you want to do it. Actually, you've become a master of doing the 5-minute review, but again, and not that this one gave you a compelling bad guy, but it was just such a great performance, and there was such a twist to the bad guy. And of course, we're talking about the Interpol agent. Did not see that coming. I was like, oh, I love it. You know what I mean?
I did not see it either, Malik. I mean, you're right. This guy, he definitely put some work, and I forgot about him.
So I loved him. But yeah, Amitabh Bachchan, dude, he literally, every film I've seen, especially the older films, man, you can see how he carries, you know what I mean, a lot of these movies. And it was so funny, even before I got into Indian films, I had heard the name Amitabh Bachchan, and that's because I follow this show, New Girl, and there's an Indian actress on there. Her name is Cece. Well, that's her character's name, Cece. I forget her real name in person. I'll look it up in a minute. But anyway, she was getting married in one of the episodes. So she had this big traditional Indian wedding, and she's like talking to her maid of honor. She's like, I need you to get over here. You know, my family's going crazy. My uncle, I think his name was Rakesh, and Rakesh has had too many White Russians, and every time he drinks too much, he goes on a long monologue thinking he's Amitabh Bachchan. So, and she has mentioned him a few times because it's one of those things where he has he's such a big star, you know what I mean? He has just transcended just Indian film. Even American Hollywood has recognized his talent, you know what I'm saying? But for sure, this guy is amazing. I remember our first experience actually watching him in a movie, and it was again in Pink, and we were like, this creepy old dude, who is this dude?
What does this guy think he is?
He like at first he was senile. I'm like, who is this guy? You know, and then as the performance went on, man, and once he got into his own environment, once he got into court, this guy was absolutely amazing, and he gave those amazing monologues there. So which he's obviously known for, but again, he was.
So let's stay with Big B for a second. This guy. He plays two characters in this movie. And I guess we don't have to worry about spoilers because this is 1978 Throwback Thursday. You know, it is what it is. This guy plays Don, which is basically a one-note character for the most part. I was super impressed with that performance because he's just, you know, he's one-dimensional for the most part. But then he also so Don dies, and we don't really know exactly if he dies for sure, but he definitely dies. They tell us later on. And then next time we see Amitabh Bachchan, he's got looks like lipstick on, and he's dancing, and he's doing singing or whatever, and he's a completely different character as VJ.
Performer, yeah.
I think it's the same name in The War, which I think was kind of funny. But then you see this VJ performance, and you see VJ who has to go undercover as Don, and then I'm like, holy cow, Amitabh Bachchan, he brought everything to this role. I mean, you see the one note with Don, and I'm like, is he really earning that paycheck? And I know it's sacrilege to say, but we only get a small bit of it. But then he comes out as VJ, and I'm like, oh, that just makes the Don performance even better. He was absolutely phenomenal and so likable as that character. And in the few movies we've seen him in so far, I have never seen that performance from him, and I was super impressed.
And you know what Nick's talking about, I'm going to try the quick synopsis, okay? Because people might be
timer on for 10 minutes.
Okay, so basically in this movie, there's this big gangster Don who cops have tried to catch him multiple times. They can't catch him. He's affiliated with a lot of international gangsters. This guy is ruthless, and he doesn't let anything slip. Like a couple times they try to corner him, he gets away. He's always prepared, always has a gun on him. I can see what you're saying, that it's kind of like a one-note performance, but he's the ultimate gangster. In any event, the cops finally catch up to him, and he gets shot in the back, ends up jumping off of a lake or whatnot. And when they can't find his body, it turns out he's actually in the back of one of the police cars or whatnot. So when they drive away, the main and you talked about him, the main detective, police officer, TSP, when he drives away with them, he realizes Don's in the back of his car. He tries to go subdue him, but Don's actually already succumbed to his injury. He's died. So he has him buried silently. Nobody knows Don has died. Some reason or some way, TSP knew that Don had this doppelganger out there, somebody that looked exactly like him. It was almost like they were twin brothers separated at birth, but they weren't. So he convinces this guy, like, look, I need you to play the Don character so we can catch the rest of these criminals and these international criminals. If you do this, the two kids that you've been looking after, I'll go ahead and put them up in a school. So this whole film revolves around this guy now playing, who's a street performer. You know, he dances, he sings, but he's playing the character of Don. He has to convince the gangsters that used to be around his circle that he is Don when he goes back into that world. However, there's a couple of double crosses we don't know about. One of the women that works for him is actually the sister of a brother that Don killed. So she's actually in there trying to kill him all along. He doesn't know this because, again, he didn't kill, I think his name was Rakesh or Ramesh, something like that. Ramesh, he didn't kill him. That was the real Don, but she doesn't know that because these guys are spitting images of each other.
Dude, her character I'm sorry to cut you off, but her character is so awesome. I love her story where it's like the movie Enough with Jennifer Lopez. I think she's in that, where, you know, she wants to get revenge. The one girl tried to get revenge for Ramesh, didn't work out. So she wants to get revenge, and she decides, I want to learn karate and something else she talked about, and I want to figure this out. And the guy's like, oh, you can't learn karate. And then he finds out that she's serious, learns how to handle a gun. I mean, she goes full, you know, effect for this type of trying to get this revenge carried out, and she is super determined. Not just that, but she is super hot. But she is just so determined. I love that character. I love that little story with the director, the screenwriter. They gave us a chance to learn about this character quite a bit.
Right, and they gave you some backstory. She just doesn't become a superhero overnight. She works at it, and she becomes determined at it. You see her go through the training, so that was a really cool part of it as well. Now, the third little thing or nugget, like this movie has so many different twists. I love the writing in this film. The plot is amazing. Okay, the guy that at the very beginning comes in talking about we got to get this guy Don because he's an international. I work for Interpol, and he's this international criminal. Come to find out, he's actually an international smuggler. He wasn't an Interpol guy. They had actually captured the Interpol guy or whatnot. So he's playing the role of Malik, but he's not really the Interpol guy. So, I mean, there's so many twists in this thing. And I love that. The storytelling is amazing here. The foreshadowing, I could not tell what was going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, it was a total surprise, again, when Malik switches up and becomes the real bad guy at the end. But I love this film as far as the plot is concerned and storytelling. Anyway, at the end of the day, it's up to Don. There's one other character, the dad of the two kids, that Don
JJ
has been looking after. JJ, he was like a trapeze artist or something like that, and he had some type of relationship with the criminal underworld. I missed that. And then
for some reason he was able to pick safes. And so they wanted him to break into the safe on this armored truck, for lack of a better term.
Right.
And he didn't want to do it. And so they screwed him over in every way possible, lost his job, this or that, threatened with the kids. Just do this job. You'll get your money. His wife is sick. She's going to die. She doesn't get this operation. They can't get the operation unless he doesn't get the money. And so just everything forces him to have to do this criminal act.
Right. And then he ends up going to jail over it. So
TSP.
He gets out and he wants to get Don, but he doesn't realize that this is not the real Don. This is the guy that's actually
he wants to get the inspector guy because he blames the inspector for everything. And then he falls into place with that diary and realizes that he has something that he can gain from that. I don't think he has any vendetta against Don. It's just, it works out to where their storylines intermingle.
Right. Well, he says, I thought you were their enemy when they meet up or whatnot, because they have a small fight in this film. Yeah, but in any event, he didn't realize that Don is actually VJ, and VJ had been taking care of his kids because, of course, his wife died, like you mentioned, all this time. Not to give away the entire story, but we just wanted to give you guys a quick synopsis of what the story was. That is my favorite part of this movie. Any thoughts?
Yes, I got tons of thoughts. So this film, and I'm not exactly sure where I want to start with my thoughts, but let me first clarify that I was not saying that Amitabh Bachchan's performance as Don was bad. It just was nothing too impressive until he got shot and he was in the back seat. He showed some emotion. I mean, Amitabh Bachchan, he's a legend, so you kind of expect these legendary performances. And then when he became VJ, like I said, it really changed that. But I love the heart of this film. Like you say, I love the story. The story is the brightest, the shiniest part of this film. Such an interesting story. And it actually made me, even though I've heard not the best things, excited to see the SRK version, to see what they do with the whole story. I think it's a great story. I like the characters, but I have some problems with this film. I really do. I still want to get that out of the way, so this is not completely negative. But there's a lot of cheese in this film. And I get 1978. I understand it. It reminded me a lot of like a Dr. No from the original James Bond, but that came out in the 60s. A lot of cheese. The girl's opening number, which was a popular song throughout the film, it was a good song. But when she was talking about him being her lover, she was trying to trick him so he can get Don arrested. Her whole performance just took me out of the movie so much. She, in my opinion, her singing, her dancing, everything it was off. It was just the editing. That's my main concern of this film, is the editing is not the best. I understand the special effects aren't going to be great. I understand the action is not going to be great. Whole lot of phantom punches. But my biggest concern was with some of the editing and with the direction. So we got the editing and the direction. Let me talk about the direction for a second. I'm not a big fan of this director because the pacing is so confusing in the first hour, where it just cuts to this scene and this scene. And this is like now 6 months later, but we have no sign of it. This is 2 weeks later. We have no sign of it. Apparently he just killed a guy. We didn't see any of it. It was just, I mean, even the way it starts off, boom, title, he shoots someone, boom. Are you okay, Don? And then he shoots someone else. It was just way too fast paced, and it was hard for me to keep up. Once we get introduced to VJ, then it slows down. The pacing is much better. The editing's much better. The cheese is actually out there. It's almost like this film was directed by two different people. And it's almost as if this film was originally 4.5 hours and they had to cut it down to 2.5 hours. And so they just cut out entire sequences. Those are my biggest complaints. This is not going to be a glowing review from me, but still, I can understand why people love this film. This is a very good film. It's a great story, and it was very nice to watch the movie.
Oh, it was a great story, and like we said earlier, the plot is amazing. Okay, the story, the writing is amazing. However, the fighting scenes, the editing, I completely agree with you. I was watching this with my 9-year-old son and my wife. Okay, we're downstairs watching it on the big TV. You know what I'm saying? The deluxe experience. And snap. Alex is there, and he's like, "Dad, they're missing all their punches." You know what I'm saying? A 9-year-old picked this up. Okay, a 9-year-old, no joke. And then Savannah's sitting there with me. We're watching this, and she's like, this is so, like, the fight scene, this is so bad. It reminds me of like the Adam West Batman, okay? The pow,
the
it was, you're right. The production level, especially with the fight scene, I get it. 1976, I had to even think back to myself, like, were all the stuff in the 70s that bad? But then I thought about it as well. I recently saw Enter the Dragon. It was on TV, and Bruce Lee walks into this thing, and he's fighting, and the sound, they got these extra sound effects, and I'm like, I never saw this before. Like, what happened? Does it stand up?
Oh, that was one thing that was driving me crazy, is high frequency, high pitch, when it was trying to elevate the suspense. And I know I'm bashing a few things right here, and that's okay if you don't like that, but I just got to be honest, that sound. Now, there was a song at the very end of the film, the very, very end. VJ was going through like a cupboard or something. That song, we didn't get the rest of the movie. That song was amazing. That song was so cool, and it was almost like way ahead of its time. I don't know what the name of the song was, but that was cool. But that sound effect was just, oh my gosh. Now, there was some action sequences that were really good, because there's a lot of fight in this film. There's a whole lot. You got VJ and you got Don, Amitabh Bachchan. He knows how to do the fighting scenes. There weren't any flying drop kicks, which was nice. But, even the editing with the fights, like where he would like dive forward going this way, and then he would land going this way. It's like, how did that happen? Like, this guy can fly or something and change his direction midair. There were some good action sequences, but the worst fight had to be the bald guy, Shakal, whatever his name was, fighting VJ in that room. You had about 4 or 5 phantom punches there.
Oh, it was, and I think that's the one that Alex was like, they're missing all their punches. It was hilarious. Yeah. But no, to me, the worst scene whatsoever, and they could have thought their way out of this. So, I mean, so many different ways, but it was when JJ is trapped in the room with the 2 kids, and he throws a rope from one side of a building to the other.
Great aim.
And he's, first of all, then he's tightrope walking with 2 kids across this rope, bro. I'm like,
and they're shaking it and they're cutting it.
I can't make it up, bro. And I'm like, and it really, that pulled me out to like the Adam West Batman. That's the best I could. Savannah hit the nail on the head. It was so cheesy, and I'm like, oh man, like it could have done so much better without those. But I get it. That was the standard for the time, because I really had to think to myself, were fight scenes so bad back then, even in American cinema? But you go back to some of the early 1970s stuff, the Bruce Lee stuff.
It was bad. So great. This is not the only movie that's done that. Now, that tightrope scene, I totally understand what you're saying. I kind of give that one, and I give everything a pass, because 1978. I totally do. I'm not sure what the budget was for this film. That scene does not hold up to 2020. Let's just say that. And there's a lot of scenes from movies that we've already reviewed on Throwback Thursday, like you had said, that don't really hold up as well. But that one is just so obvious. But I get that's the best they could have done at that time. And it was trying to build that suspense. And it was the character who wasn't able to tightrope walk because his legs were injured, and he was willing to dig deep to save his kids. And the kids, for me, were an interesting plot choice in this film. It elevated the film because of those kids, because of that added suspense, because of the love that VJ had for him, because of the love that JJ had for them. And the kids were just so sweet and so wonderful. The one thing about the kids I will say is the girl's hair length changed quite a bit from super long to super short, like in the same scene. I thought that was interesting. Once again, the editing.
And I think that was also to show you that there was a time lapse. But like you said, the way the editing was,
No, I'm saying like in the same moment, like she's sitting there with short hair. There was one of the beginning scenes when she's with VJ, her and her brother. She's got short hair, and then he goes like to the car or something. She has long hair. Like I get it. It's a nitpicky. It's not a big deal, but we had some of that.
Right. And I was just, while we were talking, I was looking up, because before I forget, I always say this. Oh, I'm gonna look this up, but her name is Hannah Simone. She plays Cece on New Girl. Beautiful as well. Holy cow, super beautiful. And she's the one that mentioned Amitabh Bachchan. But in any event, I've noticed that I think until we got into like the late 90s, you know what I mean? Like some of those films start holding up a little bit better. Obviously, Matrix, we talked about how some of those scenes held up, but that was 99, almost 2000. But anything in the 80s and especially 70s, they just didn't have the special effects budget, obviously. They didn't have the technology, you know what I mean? A lot of this stuff today is done on green screen. And even stuff that's not done on green screen, let's just be real. Some of these actors nowadays spend months training. I think about Keanu Reeves. You go on YouTube right now and type in Keanu Reeves training for
John Wick.
For John Wick, and you see him really learning how to shoot these guns and quick reload or whatever. So you don't rely on editors to quick, to try to like hide those things. I noticed that a couple of times when the girl, I know you mentioned she was an action star, but you could clearly see it wasn't her. It was either a dude in a wig or maybe another action person, but like you could see it wasn't her. The way they covered it up, make sure that the hair was over the
She straight out went into a restaurant and shot at cops, man. I mean, she is cold-blooded. I mean, she is totally.
She actually was able to sell it. She was able to sell it, but in some of those action scenes, for whatever reason, they chose to go with a stunt double, and you could just see it. You know what I mean, dude? You could just see it. And I was like, But again, like you said, I keep saying 76, 1978, it makes sense. With that being said, man, even though the technology doesn't hold up, those scenes hold up. When we watch a lot of these older movies, and I think we mentioned this with maybe Indiana Jones or maybe it wasn't Jurassic Park, because we said that actually held up, but we have to more look at the storyline and the actual plot and the acting, because those things are timeless. As far as technology goes, you work with what you have. You know what I mean? So as far
that's why my biggest complaint is the editing and direction, because that is something that can be fixed even on a shoestring budget.
Right. And who knows, why they chose to do it that way. I know exactly what you're talking about. There was one cut that was really funny where what was it? It was the face. Like they cut quick to the face or whatever, and I was like, that's so bad. It was what was it? It was when the bullets weren't in the gun or whatever, and then they cut to Dawn, because Dawn had taken the bullets out of the gun, the first chick that tried to avenge Ramesh or whatever, and then they cut to her face, and I was like, okay, that was bad. You know what I mean? That should have just been like a one take shot and not the multiple cuts there.
Well, not just that, but I mean, I don't want to harp too much, because I actually really did enjoy this film. I watched it all in one sitting, which I say only because that just shows how much I wanted to finish it, how much I enjoyed it, and I wanted.
It's a long movie. It's definitely a long movie. So
yeah, it's close to 2 hours 40 minutes. I mean, it just jumps right into it. But I like the story. I like the twists and turns. I love the Amitabh Bachchan in this. I love the actress that played Roma, like I had mentioned, the guy who played DS. I thought it added a huge element of suspense when the inspector died, and you got VJ trying to convince these people, like, I'm not Don, I swear, because you got the people in the back who are the gangsters who are like, oh, he's not Don, we're going to get him now. And if he cannot convince them, then whatever, then you like this Malik guy because he's given him every chance possible to prove it, which we know later on is because he wanted to get any kind of proof out of there. He wanted to find that diary. Oh, you know what the diary is? Let's give him a chance and find out. Right. And so they did a great job with that. I mean, like you said, the story was just phenomenal. Whoever wrote this deserves mad props. And I'm not going to say the director did a horrible job. There were still some good parts. They casted very well for this film. and there were certain elements that were actually fun if you can get past the 1978 kind of cheese of this or that. There were a lot of parts that were really fun, like in the graveyard scene where they're throwing around the diary. It's easy to make fun of that kind of choice, but I had never seen that before. And they're fighting the people. They're throwing around the diary. You got JJ pulling a Yoda where without the cane, he can kick butt, and then he goes back to the cane where he can barely walk. But I had fun with that scene. That was a lot of fun, and I did not see the switcheroo with the other diary coming whatsoever. So that was really cool. I mean, Malik, it seemed like he had 9 lives, which you want to have in a villain. He wasn't, like you would said, like twisting the mustache. Like, he was a really good fleshed out villain. When they talked about how Inspector got killed, they showed that whole thing about how like
it
quick
was
in the last second, like, oh, you just shot him, didn't you? We're gonna get you now. We're gonna arrest you. That was super sweet. And, you know, some of the guys who played the gangsters, they did a really good job. The one older guy, I can't think of his name, who I thought was the boss at first until Malik introduced himself, he did a really good job. There's so much to like about this movie. There really is. And I love the relationship between Roma and VJ. And again, I love VJ's character and how much he cares about those kids. There's just so much to like, but I did have some issues with it.
No, definitely. And I think that the best I can put this performance or compare this performance to, I don't know if you remember Nicolas Cage and John Travolta on Face Off, where they have to switch characters. That's what he did. He went first, he showed you this is who Don is. He's a gangster. This is who VJ is, and we definitely got 2 separate characters, and then we got to see VJ become Don again, and it was played masterfully. So from that standpoint, I mean, the performance was great, and I agree with you. The story was great. Again, the fight scenes did not hold up. Some of the editing choices, in my opinion, just like in yours, were poor. What I did like too, though, was the choices with the music as far as the songs. You come to expect, especially in Indian cinema, that you're going to have the big set dance pieces and the song and dance. All of them fit seamlessly in. I know you said the first one isn't your favorite, but it made sense when
the song
they
is good. I didn't like her performance.
Right. It made sense, though, when they put them in there. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't at an awkward moment. In other films we've seen where it comes at an awkward moment, like, this doesn't even make sense here. All of them fit seamlessly in, and it fit into the plot of the story. You know what I mean?
I think the best song, in my opinion, was where he's with those guys, you know, the guy with his shirt off or whatever, and they're just partying or whatever.
The leaf or whatever.
He's trying to get some more Patel leaf or whatever, which I looked that up. That's actually high in nutrients and vitamins and whatnot. I thought it was like a spicy thing from the way people were talking about it, but apparently I'm not sure if it has some spice too, but it's just very nutritious. But that whole dance number, that whole song was really cool. And I really liked the one where we first get introduced to VJ that Amitabh Bachchan did. There was some really good songs. I just did not like that actress and what she was doing at the beginning.
Right. No, I get you. But I just thought that they fit seamlessly in there. But, you know, with that being said, I don't have any more thoughts on this movie. We want to go ahead give grades. I'll go first. Or you want me to go first?
Let's do age before beauty.
Age. Oh, wow. All right. In that case, you go first. No, I'm joking. I'm the old man here. I'm the senior. Dude, you know what? Again, I've had to train myself to look at these films through a different lens and not really knock the films that much for, you know, again, technology, for lack of a better word. They didn't have green screen, that whole thing. They didn't have the ability to do the CGI to make some of those things more believable. So with that being said, though, there still were some editing issues there that I did not quite enjoy. So I'm probably going to go with a B-. You know what I mean? I can't get it higher than a B-. The story is what makes it a B. The acting is what makes it a B-. But again, like you said, the director himself should have said, okay, this is not working. Go back and look. And like you said, it seems like they try to condense a much longer film into a smaller film, which is maybe why the pacing was so off. But because of pacing and editing, and I got to go with a B. I'll give it a solid B, but definitely left a little bit to be desired.
Yeah, you know, this is such a hard film to grade because, like you said, 1978. And there's so many elements. Like there some of the elements I didn't like. I really did not like them. But then the rest of the film I really like. So I mean, this can be from either from a C to an A. But I've got to be as true as I can And, I'm so torn. I know that as we continue to review more films, I'm going to think about Dawn. I'm going to think about the story. And that's going to last more than some of the cheesy scenes. But I'm not sure how many times I'm going to want to rewatch this film besides the remake. So I'm really torn, but I'm going to give it a B plus. I almost gave it an A minus. I'm going to give it a B plus. It's a little higher than yours, but not much. But it seems like we feel very similar about this film, which is good. In Boring Reviews, if we don't like a film, then we don't want to bash it. This is nothing like that. We both liked it, but there were some things that kept it from being in that A territory. And so a B plus for me. We hope that you let us know what you think about this film. If you've seen this movie a million times, then try to look at our perspective as opposed to just this movie you grew up loving. Because I'm telling you right now, some of the movies that are in my top 10, people can easily bash and say that's garbage. So I get it. But let us know what you think about it. Let us know what you think about our thoughts, if they're fair, if they're not.
I will tell you about a thought I had watching this. There were about 5 or 6 twists in this movie, and I'm like, this is where M. Night Shyamalan got it, because he's the king of the twists, right? You know what I mean, dude? And I like the whole one character playing another character. They did it in Double Impact with Steven Seagal. They did it in other movies. Like, you can see where some of these directors, I mean, honestly, bro, they're literally stealing from other content and making it their own thing, but taking like small little ideas. Because realistically, most movies are a rehash of something else, all right? Or that idea you can only come up with so many original ideas before you have to go back. And I've seen so many of the ideas from this movie that have been now put into more modern American movies, and specifically, man, M. Night Shyamalan with all the twists. This is where he got it from, because I was like, what? The inspector's actually not the inspector, the
Interpol.
The Interpol guy is actually the head gangster. Oh, what's going on? She's really, like all the twists that they put in there, it was super cool, and I enjoyed that part of it. So that, like you said, holds up over time, because that's probably one of my favorite things about movies today, trying to figure out twists. Those of you that have Amazon, watch. It's on Amazon now. Some people might have watched it already, but it's called Knives Out. I love Knives Out. The performances in there, the acting. Chris Evans, our Captain America, does an unbelievable job in this movie as well. And Daniel Craig, who plays Bond, he's in here. He's the lead inspector. He's got this southern accent that's amazing. But this is where all the twists come from. And those are some of my favorite movies, because you're like, okay, let me try to see if I can figure this out before they give it to me. You know what I mean? And you're just paying attention to details. So that has held up over time. And you can see from 1978, this is probably the first movie I can remember with that twist. One of the oldest, I can say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it definitely. I hesitate to use the word revolutionary, because who knows what films come before that. I'm not a huge classics fan, but I am excited that this is like the 4th or 5th Indian classic that we've seen, and I've enjoyed them all. I sometimes get nervous, even with Hollywood classics, like, am I going to be super bored or not? And typically they're called classics for a reason. So thanks for checking this out thanks for checking out this review, and for letting us know that you want us to check this out. We hope you enjoyed our review, and don't forget to come back next time. And until next time,
we know all things.